You're basically you're not getting like a spouse, you're not getting an individual, you're not getting a roommate, you're kind of getting a partner
That's it, man.
for the best times and the good and the bad times.
For the good and the bad, man.
And we're coming to the conclusion of this video, but this is something I always like discussing because, again, very relevant to my own circumstances back in the Middle East. I want to talk about two things, hopefully briefly, and this comes to the topic of death.
Mm.
I want to talk about life insurance, and I want to end on talking about inheritance
Okay.
because I feel like we don't want to talk about death in general. It's going to happen. You can be an atheist, you can be Christian, you can be Jewish, Muslim, it's going to happen. It
Yeah,
doesn't discriminate.
that's right.
It's an equal opportunity end of life, we could say. And what that means is I see a lot of times, even my mother herself, she just doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want to acknowledge it because she's not afraid to die. She's afraid of us dying.
Mm.
That's the worst thing in the world for her. God bless her. But like because of that, she doesn't want to acknowledge anything to do with life insurance. She doesn't want to acknowledge anything to do with inheritance. And back home, we have land. She has her jewelry. We have assets, and it's got to be something that I keep telling her. I try not to push it, but like it's got to be something that's settled when you're alive.
Yes, sir.
Else, we're going to be in this situation. I don't know if it's a very common thing in the States, inheritance disputes,
Oh
but
yeah.
like in Lebanon, I see a lot of situation where like three siblings will like inherit land from their parents, but then like they have no plan for the land, so it's just like they're wasting away. And then like those siblings will have children of their own, and then one of the siblings will die, and then the land is like two siblings and five grandchildren, and then because no one planned, they got no value out of it while they were still alive. Could have gone to healthcare, kids, education, and now like you got like 20 individuals with like 5 meters each, and it's worth nothing.
Right.
And worse than the actual value of the land, you got all these individuals who now hate each other
That's right.
because they're just fighting in court. They're fighting in the dining room. They're like, oh, I love my mom, but I hate my brother. Because
Yeah.
and how do these conflicts always start? Yeah, he screwed me over land back home.
That's right.
He screwed me over the inheritance. Or worst case, there was no actual will. So again, now it's like a big battle between lawyers,
Chaos.
and the only people winning are the lawyers.
Yes, sir.
So when it comes to number one, life insurance, and number two, inheritance, how
Yeah.
would you go about it as the financial constructor?
Yeah. Yeah. So life insurance is something everybody needs to be prepared for. Something that a lot of people don't do, and this is something that you talked about kids, right? Nobody wants, the worst thing anybody ever wants to experience is their kids dying. Nobody wants that, right? But you know, uh, your kids having a policy at a young age, term life policy. First of all, it's very very cheap for kids because kids have the majority of their life. They're healthy, etc., etc. But certain life insurances that you do with your kids, you can actually use and get cash out later on, which you can use to either buy them a vehicle, you can use it towards college. A lot of different vehicles there. So, number one, for your kids, I would consider doing some sort of term policy of some sort for life insurance. There are policies out there. Do your research on that, but you can take advantage of that for your kids. Number two, as adults, I would be remiss if I don't use the word irresponsible if we don't have a life insurance. First of all, someone's got to, whenever our time comes, someone has to bury us, right? Someone's got to, there's a cost to that, right? Nothing's free. There's a cost to doing those things. There's a cost for those processes that come along the way. Um, in the midst of the mourning, hopefully the mourning that we're no longer here. In the midst of that mourning, we talked about money, right? And the tension of money and how money influences behavior. In the midst of that, not having the resources to be able to do the things that they need to do for you adds another unnecessary layer of stress and tension in the midst of mourning. That's completely unfair because you're not there to experience it with them or be accountable for how they're feeling because you're gone, right? So the word is irresponsible in my opinion, and I hope nobody gets offended on it, but I don't know there's a better word if you don't have that for life insurance. in that.
It's realistic.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. The other thing I would say, as aside from life insurance too, a living will, a will of some sort, writing a will out just so that people are aware. Now, will, something that people don't know, and this is just, some people may or not know. People write a will and they think if they write, you write on a piece of paper. A will is usually, at least in the United States, a will is used for your medical wishes once you're gone, right? I want to be cremated, I want to be buried, whatever the case may be. But if you do a trust, if you build a trust, especially a living trust, I know in Florida you can do a living trust, but if you do a trust, basically this protects the government from infiltrating your assets once you're gone, and it protects the terms in there.
They
Folks
always
that
want a
don't have,
piece, man.
sir.
They always want a piece.
Oh, they always want a piece, man, and they'll try to still get a piece. But if you build out a trust, what a trust does, it creates, for those that don't know, you might know this, of course, but for those that don't, a trust almost creates uh, 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 um, a hedge around all of your assets. It protects the assets, and then those that you assign to the trust protects them, gives in the hedge of your assets. So for my wife and I, just not too long ago, we built out our living trust and we put all of our assets there. We made very specific what goes to the kids. This percentage goes to this one, this percentage goes to this one goes to this one. If something happens to us and they are minors, meaning under 18, these are the three people in this order that will get custody. You don't want to create, and we're talking, of course, while her and I are talking about, we're like, man, like, hopefully we never have to, like, this never needs to be executed, but or at least much sooner than we want. But like, you don't want to create chaos for folks, right? Because to your point, you die and then all of a sudden you got family members fighting over stuff that you left behind. The legacy you leave behind is chaos. It's not, wow, man, look what, dad left, for all of us, or look what grandpa left for all of us, or great grandpa. Now it's like, man, since he's been gone, look at all the stuff that's happened. And it tarnishes probably what, and it takes away from the effort that you actually try to do to leave generational wealth to those behind you. But you got to organize your assets, man. Organize your assets so that you relieve unnecessary tension and stress to those that are mourning after you're gone.
100%. I can even think of a case where a good friend of mine and one of his relatives passed away. And imagine your relative passed away, you get a letter, and it's like, hey, this guy's debts need to be paid. Yeah. So I guess an empathetic way to say it, or a very good marketing way to say it, would be like, your kids are going to be your babies, whether they're 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Your kids are still going to be your babies even after you die, and you're still taking care of them after you pass away.
Yes, sir.